Hello students, today we'll be doing the Porter scene, Act 2 Scene 3 of Macbeth. We finished our discussion in the last class when Macbeth has already killed Duncan and he's come back. They are both disturbed by a sound of knocking, and now in this scene we get to see another character who is not directly linked with the plot of the play, but whose presence and the whole episode that he brings with him throws some light on the moral issues in the play and that of Macbeth's past and future in an oblique way, in a metaphorical way that is not apparently discernible. You cannot just read the scene and without some kind of explanation you cannot immediately perceive the connection between what is at issue in this scene vis-a-vis the play's overarching themes and ideas. Now, the porter says, "Here's a knocking indeed. If a man were porter of Hellgate, he should have old turning the key." Now, is a porter of Hellgate, what is this idea? In the apocryphal Gospel of Nicodemus, Jesus Christ delivered Adam, Eve, and Moses from the hell circles of hell, and this episode in the medieval morality plays and in the Corpus Christi cycles are known as the harrowing of hell. Frequently, hell was pictured as a castle with a gatekeeper, with a keeper of Hellgate, and that is an allegorical medieval figure that the porter here kind of brings back the memory of, in the sense the audience of Shakespeare's plays and especially that of Macbeth would have been familiar with the figure of the porter of Hellgate from their viewing of various morality and mystery plays that were the tradition of the medieval ages. But here they are all the figures in that allegorical scheme are in some way relatable to the characters in this scene and of course to Macbeth himself. Now I'll proceed and I'll explain further what are the exact connections between these figures and the ideas that you find in the play and their relation to this scene. Now, who's there in the name of Beelzebub? Beelzebub is of course one of the devils and another name for devil, and if you follow your footnote, you'll see that we should surely expect him to say in the name of my master or possibly in the name of Macbeth. But since Macbeth has just murdered Duncan, in the name of Beelzebub or in the devil's name is just as appropriate. I don't see the exact correspondence here because the porter is not, the Macbeth is not the porter's master. The porter is just a general porter who was drunk and who overslept, who was hungover and who has now come. He is not a character that is related to Macbeth in any way or is not a servant of his. So I don't see the connection that they're implying. But anyways, let's proceed. Here's a farmer that hanged himself on the expectation of plenty. Coming time, have napkins enough about you, here you will sweat for it. Knock knock, who's there in the other devil's name? Faith. Here's an equivocator that could swear in both the scales against either scale, who committed treason enough for God's sake, yet could not equivocate to heaven. O come in, equivocator. Now these are the three figures that we find here, and the third figure is here. Knock knock, who's there? Faith. Here's an English tailor come hither for stealing out of a French hose. Come in, tailor, here you may roast your goose. Knock knock, never at quiet, what are you? But this place is too cold for hell. I'll devil porter it no further. I had thought to have let in some of all professions that go the primrose way to the everlasting bonfire. Anon, anon, I pray you remember the porter. Now এখানে আমরা তিনটে ফিগারকে porter is granting entrance to three figures. One is a farmer, the other is a tailor, and the third is an equivocator. Now all these figures are in some way related to Macbeth or reflections or echoes or shadows of Macbeth's career. In the sense, the farmer that hanged himself on the expectation of plenty, the tailor who tried to steal clothes out of a French hose, and the equivocator who can swear in both the scales against either scale are all figures of the overreacher, one familiar trope, familiar figure, in Elizabethan and early modern play, where what Macbeth calls vaulting ambition in the 7th scene of the play, Act 1, Scene 7, that because of that they overleap and fall on the other side, were defeated by their overweening ambition. And these are all figures who whose career, whose eventual, damnation, foreshadow what is going to happen to Macbeth. As we'll see by the end of Act 5, Scene 5, that his head is severed from his body as Macbeth holds it aloft and calls him the Butcher King and the Fiend-like Queen. Lady Macbeth is called the Fiend-like Queen. So that is the eventuality of Macbeth's career, and that is something that is foreshadowed in the damnation attendant upon these three overreachers: the tailor, the farmer, and the equivocator. The equivocator is obviously a topical allusion, in the sense that there's a plot in 1606 hatched by Jesuit priests, and especially led by the Jesuit priest called Father Garnet, to blow up the Parliament and assassinate King James. But the plot was foiled, and those planning to commit treason and murder James, James the First, who is obviously Shakespeare's patron at this point, and for whom this play was written and performed for the first time. He punished them and hanged them and killed them, obviously in a state-sanctioned killing. So that is the equivocator, because the equivocator, when they were called to trial, equivocation means to say an untruth but not exactly to lie, which is to say something with the deliberate intention to deceive. Equivocation is a kind of speech that is in the grey zone between truth and falsity, and that is why that is one way in which the Jesuits, accused of hatching the plot to murder the king, tried to get out of the law's punitive ways. And if you follow the footnote given in your text, then you'll see that this phrase, "for God's sake," is a common oath, but the phrase may refer specifically to the Jesuit priests' equivocal oaths to preserve their lives from political reprisal while also maintaining their faith. So they tried to have it both ways and escape punishment, but that eventually did not augur well for them, because they were found out and they were tried and they were executed. So now we come to the figure of English tailor come hither for stealing out of a French hose. If you follow your footnote, you will see that this is possibly a joke about the tailor skimping on fabric in men's garments, but fashions changed quickly, and French hose were both loose and tight at various times in the early modern period, making theft difficult or easy to detect, as the case might be. For analogous details of changing fashions in breeches, you can see a play called The Roaring Girl, as you find in the note. But there is another, and then this is the innuendo, that there is a sexual innuendo. Tail is equal to vagina and hose is equal to penis. So roast your goose means what? There's a suggestion that you can warm your penis, or you can steal out of the vagina. So that is one idea here, suggestion. And there are certain suggestions of venereal disease also. If you see in the previous lines that the suggestion of the napkins, here you will sweat for it. The sweating tub is known as one of the cures for the venereal diseases. So all the figures in this scene, the three figures, farmer, tailor, and equivocator, they are all imagined as degenerates who must suffer for their punishment, and venereal disease was believed to be a moral suffering visited upon a sinner by God himself. So that is one idea that you will find here, with the repeated reference and suggestions to venereal diseases and sexual debauchery. Now, this place is too cold for hell. This refers to Dante's Inferno, where the damned souls, the rebels, the prisoners, were believed to be freezing in the coldest circle of hell. I think that is the 13th circle. So that is one reference to Dante. And I had thought to have let in some of all professions that go the primrose way to the everlasting bonfire. If you follow the footnote, you'll see that the primrose, Shakespeare appears to have invented the phrase primrose path as a contrast between the easy and attractive pleasures of sin and the consequences of sin. the everlasting bonfires of hell. So primrose path of that goes to the everlasting bonfire. Mane the scenes, the means of the scenes looks very attractive. Like the scene in this case is obviously the scene of that Macbeth commits in murdering Duncan. That is a way that looks very attractive, but it leads to the everlasting bonfire. It leads to damnation. It leads to hell. That is the suggestion. So all these three figures are, according to the porter himself, that they belong to professions that go the they are figures from professions, and they are characters who go the primrose way to the everlasting bonfire, who all follow the course of sin and are eventually damned. So Macbeth himself is another figure of that. So this is how indirectly Shakespeare is commenting on the career of Macbeth and the trajectory of his fate by showing these figures through the porter's speech. Now enter Macbeth and Lennox. Macbeth, was it so late, friend, ere you went to bed, that you do lie so late? Porter, faith, sir, we are carousing till the second cock, and drink, sir, is a great provoker of three things. Carousing is obviously reveling, drinking, making merry, and obviously drink is an essential element for that, and it is a great provoker of three things. Macbeth, what three things does drink especially provoke? Porter, merry, sir, nose painting, sleep, and urine. Lechery, sir, it provokes and unprovokes. It provokes the desire, but it takes away the performance. Therefore, much drink may be said to be an equivocator with lechery. It makes him and it mars him. It sets him on and it takes him off. It persuades him and disheartens him, makes him stand to and not stand to. In conclusion, equivocates him in a sleep, and giving him the lie, leaves him. So this whole প্রথমে দেখতে হবে যে great provoker of three things, three things ki nose painting, sleep, and urine. Nose painting is the reddening of the sword's nose, and Lady Macbeth আমরা এখানে মনে করতে পারছি Lady Macbeth angrily dismissed the painted face and its effect. So some kind of untruth, some kind of evil and debauchery, all these three, nose paint, urine, and sleep are all nose painting, sleep, and urine are all figures where your rational faculty is actually eclipsed, and you are at the mercy of irrational powers, or you are at the mercy of the excesses you have committed and the results. So lechery, sir, it provokes and unprovokes. Lechery is obviously sexual desire that is somehow unlawful. It provokes the desire, but it takes away the performance. Therefore, much drink may be said to be an equivocator with lechery. It makes him and it mars him. It sets him on and it takes him off. It persuades him and disheartens him, makes him stand to and not stand to. So এই যে পুরো ফ্রেজটা, পুরো this whole section, this says that it stimulates the drink. What does drink do? It stimulates sexual interest, but inhibits sexual functioning and performance. For contemporary beliefs about witches and their power to inhibit a male's sexual performance, you can see Francis Dolan's book. I'll give you the name later. And provoking or tempting and unprovoking also describe the sisters' words to Macbeth and Banquo in Act 1, Scene 3. So this is going back to Act 1, Scene 3. Since those words provoke Macbeth to regicide, but also seem to promise that he will become king without star. Starred মধ্যে একটা sexual suggestion আছে, because Macbeth will be barren, and there is a fruitless scripture. Macbeth পর নিজেই বলছে একটা জায়গায়. So the sterility of the Macbeths are very important to their damnation. It's very important because that is why the witches' association with Macbeth are in this, that the witches are barren, and the evil and the human beings they choose to plant their evil in are also barren, fruitless. So that is the idea. And so and also this idea that someone it provokes the desire, but it inhibits the proper performance, inhibits sexual functioning. So this is exactly what is happening, and what Lady Macbeth accused Macbeth of in the previous scenes, where he has the desire to be a king, but he cannot perform. And you remember that, was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? This is the line that Lady Macbeth says to Macbeth in, I think, Act 1, Scene 7, when he is unwilling to commit the murder. So drinking, Macbeth is a very austere figure who is not sexually promiscuous or is who's not drunkard. At least that is not the suggestion in the majority of the play. So